Well, in a moment, we'll speak to our political editor, Gary Gibbon, who's also in the Scottish capital. But first, to our economics editor, Faisal Islam, in Madrid. Well, Faisal, the Catalan nationalists have made a sort of common cause with the SNP. So what's the reaction there to what's happened today?
Well, it's no secret that when Alex Salmond first launched this conversation a few years ago, he was far warmer about the possibility of joining the Eurozone. The Euro crisis has put an end to that, and the white paper describes a new concept of the sterling monetary zone of two sovereign nations, and the travails of Spain and Italy, Greece, Portugal and Ireland do offer some lessons to how monetary unions operate. Alex Salmond will argue, and did argue, that Scotland will be prudent fiscally, it wouldn't get into the sorts of crisis that we've seen in the Eurozone. But the lesson here of Spain is that when banks go crazy lending loads of money into commercial property and mortgages, they need bailouts anyway, and sovereignty becomes a moot point within a monetary union. And guess what? Exactly that happened in Scotland with the Scottish headquartered banking system. They did have to ask for a bailout, and RBS was 25 times the then GDP of Scotland. None of which is to say that Scottish independence is Scottish independence is entirely plausible economically. You see the message Alex Salmond is, the vision that he's spreading out is a Norwegian type of model with a giant sovereign wealth fund. But I think that the issue is here in Spain, they are facing a similar referendum with Catalonia, which Madrid will pronounce illegal. But the issue here is that the European Union negotiation that Scotland might have to do won't be great, because Spain says it's very difficult to envision the idea of different nations breaking off. They don't want that. So it might not be as easy as he expects for the European Union to give them a good deal.
Thanks, Faisal. Well, let's go to Gary now. Give us a sense of what kind of occasion it was today.
Well, it was a fairly sombre one. Alex Salmond can and has put on affairs that are razzle-dazzle rallies with all singing and dancing and Gaelic poetry, the rest of it. This was the presentation of a government prospectus. He wanted to appear competent. The whole thing was very low-key. And I think some people on the Better Together side were slightly astonished by that. They thought it was the dog that didn't bark. There was a rabbit out of the hat, to mix my animal metaphors, in that Alex Salmond came along and talked about free childcare, eventually for all ages of infants, but not much in terms, very careful, Alex Salmond, about this, in terms of the mechanics of independence, the stuff that Faisal's talking about there. Alex Salmond wanted to move the debate on from do you associate with NATO by Article 47 or 48. He wanted to talk about the retail offer to voters. He thinks there's lots of them out there, the less well-off in Scotland, who might just be pulled over by the sort of policies that he was unveiling on childcare and on welfare today.
Gary in Edinburgh, Faisal in Madrid, thank you very much for joining us.